Hi and welcome to my video. My name is Carol-Ann Torrey. I'm a Stampin' Up demonstrator from Cambridge, New Zealand. Thank you for joining me and I hope you enjoy this short video. Today I'm going to be, as we all are, using the mini catalogue, which is really exciting. And I'm choosing from the mini catalogue to feature something on page 28, which often gets overlooked, is the background stamps. So I'm going to be using the hand-drawn dots, which is a large stamp, large cling stamp. So there's lots of different ways we can use this, and I'm going to show you some different techniques. I hope you enjoy it. Using the stamp to do some backgrounds, this is a tone on tone. This is a contrast one. This is one where I've used just Versamark, straight Versamark on a darker colour. This is one we're starting to add some colour, and this is one I just did a quick masked one, and this is the technique that I'm going to be showing you today, which is sometimes called Joseph's coat, or it's also called trapped colour. So we will be doing blending with the blending brushes, and then we'll also be doing some heat embossing and some resist on top of that. So I wanted to use some different colours today from my usual and mix things up a little bit. So I often take inspiration from the catalogue, and you can too. I really love this Fancy Flora, a suite, which is on page 14, but I don't have any of this yet. I loved some of these colours, and Stampin' Up makes it easy for us. It actually gives us a list of the colours that are using. So I'm going to choose some colours from this suite and combine them to make a background. Okay, so the colours I chose were the Daffodil Yellow and the Calypso Coral and the Soft Succulent. So I'm just going to give you a bit of an idea of how we can do this. It's a good idea to just tap up a bit of excess on the block, and also start off the edge, because otherwise you can get a bit of a blotch, which we never want. So I'm just going to add some colour in here, and today I'm just going to do some random blending. I'm not going to blend the whole thing. Oopsie, I'm doing this the wrong way round because I'm trying to do two things at once. Not very good at multitasking here. Oh, we've got the cat saying hello too. And again, we are just going to tap some off on there. And I'm just going to do a blended background. You can make it as intense as you like, or you may choose to make it a little more subtle. So the idea is to just get some smooth blending. Don't do what I do and get a blotch there. Fortunately, I'm going to switch to one I prepared earlier in just a moment, so I'm not going to bore you with watching me blend this, but you have the idea. I usually go over at the end with the lighter colours and just make sure things are blending in nicely. So here's the one I did prepared earlier, and it's with those same colours that I was using. And now what we want to do, because I prepared it earlier, it's all nice and dry. If you are going straight on from the blending to doing the embossing, then you might need to use your heat tool to dry it a little first. So I'm going to bring over my Stamparatus. I totally recommend using the Stamparatus when you're doing a big background stamp like this. Remember, it's this hand-drawn dots, because it's very hard to get good pressure on, and this way you can go back and add another layer if you need to. So I've already stamped it once, so I can have a bit of an idea where it's going to end up. I also took out the pad, the little pad that goes in here, because we're using a cling stamp. Remember, you won't get a good impression if you leave that in. It ends up being too thick. Just giving this a clean off because it's still a little dirty, and we definitely don't want this dirty when we do this next stage. So we've got that clean. We are going to put our piece of card in position. Now I've actually made this card the same size as a card front because it's very hard to get a good impression if you're going to be stamping right to the edges. So I always cut it a bit bigger than I wanted, and then I'm going to cut it down to size once I've done the next couple of steps. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stamp this with Versamark. But before we do that, most importantly, don't let me forget, we must use the embossing buddy to make sure we don't have any static or that will spoil the embossing. So we just tap that over there, and then I just brush it off. Make sure you don't touch it in between. And we're going to ink up with the Versamark. And oh, you can't see what I'm doing, can you? Okay, we're inking up with the Versamark, and you'll find it if you pop the empty stamp case under there. Okay, when I trim that down, it's flat, as you can see. Make sure you just pop this in place on the inside. Nice, juicy pad. You can stamp on this too if you wish. Before you start this. This is just the Versamark that I'm using here. So, okay, so now we just need to add our sentiment. And we want to get a good impression. Sometimes I actually come along with the block and just rub over it. Make sure I'm getting a good even impression over the whole piece of card. Okay, so let's look that up. Now, because I've used Versamark, there's not much to see. At this stage, it's a little bit of an anticlimax. So we've got this little margin here, which isn't stamped. So we're finished with that one for now. And now we need to add the embossing powder, and we're going to use clear embossing powder. And I usually actually use just a piece of paper. So I'm just heating up the embossing tool, and I'm just going to give this a quick emboss. Once this is nice and hot, often stop it curling too much. I'll give it a little blast from the underneath first, and then hopefully it will help it keep straight by curling it one way first. So when this is melted, because it's clear, it's going to be quite hard to see. You can see it's kind of disappearing now down in that bottom right corner. It's changing from white to clear. Just take your time, but don't linger too long in one spot. Okay, so just have a little check and make sure that you've actually embossed all those. They look pretty good. Okay, so next thing, we're going to take a blending brush, and I'm going to use another colour from the suite that the DSP that I'm using here, and I'm going to use the Orchid Oasis. So I'm just inking this up pretty generously, because we're going to need to lay down quite a bit of ink here, because you think, oh my god, what's she doing? That all will be revealed. It can be a bit of a moment of truth when you first start adding the ink. I don't worry so much about stamping off with this one, because we are going to have to put a lot down. Okay, so if you're really wanting to go, I'm only using a sort of medium dark colour here with the Orchid Oasis. Oftentimes with this technique you use black or some other dark colours. I did actually prepare some with some backgrounds using some darker colours too. Like this is one I've made, then I used the Evening Evergreen. So you don't have to use navy or black, you can use a dark colour as long as it's going to cover up the colours that are behind. So that's all I'm going to do on that one. Don't forget to just buff over the top. I'm actually just using a paper towel here, just to take any ink that might just be sitting on top of the embossing. The clear embossing has resisted the Orchid Oasis, and you've got these pops of colour on the darker background. Okay, so I've trimmed it down and I've got a waste piece that I've trimmed off, and I often use this to decorate the inside of the card, so I'll just put that to one side for the moment. I have some pieces I've already cut to size to make mats. So just going to have a little even border around there, and we're going to pop okay, when I trim that down, it does fit, as you can see. Let's just pop this in place on the inside. You could stamp on this too if you wish. Okay, so now we just need to add our sentiment. Okay, now I'm ready to stamp the sentiment, and there's a couple of little tricks to show you here. I'm just going to be using the biggest swish set here, and I'm just going to line the stamp up on there. Back to a photopolymer, so I've got the mat in there, and I'm going to stamp with the soft succulent. I'm going to stamp with that. I'm just going to stamp it down on there so I know where it's going to stamp. So yep, that's pretty nicely lined up, and I'm going to stamp it on to a die cut I've already prepared, and I like to use the negative space to help me line up my die with the stamping. And this is a technique that is really useful if you're making a batch of cards. I can just pop that in there now, and I can stamp that. Good. Okay, and now I need to do the birthday part, which I'm going to do in the Orchid Oasis. So I can, if I'm worried about the marking the thing I've already made, I can just pop this on here. We're just going to overlap it a little, and I'm going to no, don't do that, don't do what I do. Just as well I did take the other one out, I would have mucked it up, but that's okay. We're going to pop that in there. So remember, you can use the other side. And also remember that that ink there will definitely get on my fingers, especially as I'm videoing. So let's just clean that off before we get into a mess. So I'm just going to take my Orchid Oasis again here, and I'm going to now stamp up the birthday. Let's pop that in. Okay, and then we've got that stamp just where we want it to be. And I'm going to layer this onto my trapped colour background. So just going to pop it on there like that with some dimensionals, and we are also going to add some bling. Show you some others that I've made shortly, so we'll pop that on there. There we go, it's a little tucking in position, and I'm going to put some bling onto that. What are we going to use? I think we've just been using the rhinestones, which are nice and sparkly. Or actually, just to mix it up, I'm going to use the iridescent ones this time. Oops, let me not throw them on the floor. And it's just getting a few on there, get a little bit of sparkle, and you can see I've got it the inside. Now, to show you some of the other ones I made using the same technique. Plus some others I've made using the other techniques I talked about. Here's some more trapped colour ones using some different colourways. So these have all been inspired by Fancy Flora. This one, the one I've just made, this one, and I also made this one. And these ones, instead of using the biggest wish, I've used a lovely stamp set that you can earn for free in Celebration. Beautifully happy, and it is a fantastic set. It's got lovely floral designs, and it's got lovely phrases. It's two-step stamping, so you can use the line images and colour them, or leave them blank, or you can use the two-step stamping to colour them, which is really lovely. So I've used that for this one, just the plain background there. Here's a little bit of a rainbow background using the phrase from there. Again, I've used the little strips inside. And this is one that is using white embossing on a blended background, and again got the iridescent. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this little video, and I am sure you're having fun on this catalogue launch. There's so many lovely things, and there's so many talented people, and I'm really happy to be part of it. Hope to see you again soon. Bye.